Hey everyone, welcome back with Beano Mac, where today we are going to continue once again our playthrough of WWF WrestleMania 2000 Neon Green Edition. Now this time I'm going to try something a little bit different with my commentary here, but first we're of course going to start, if I could be serious for 1 minute, we're going to do the question of the day. Since it's, the month of November that we're playing through this time. By the way, this is a romhack by KWG. Just modifies the faces a little bit and, updates a lot of attires and makes it more accurate to what it was at the time and what the characters looked like and more accurate movesets and stuff like that. But anyway, time for the question of the day, folks. And that is, what is your favorite Survivor Series main event? Could be an actual Survivor Series match. It could be just main event, title match or anything like that. Survivor Series, despite being the big four, I feel like it's often looked at as like the lesser of all, the less of all four and stuff like that. But that said, I still think it had some pretty monumental events. I think a really good one that was there was the triple threat with John Cena, Triple H, and Shawn Michaels was very exciting in 2009. Definitely subverted expectations going in. Let me see. There's also the Invasion Survivor Series match was pretty good, even though they already kind of did that at the actual Invasion pay-per-view earlier. But that was kind of what settled things for WWF versus WCW and stuff like that. So I mean, I think there's a few that kind of stand out for me. Obviously, there's the Montreal Screwjob, which. Not really known for the match itself. The Rock versus Mankind was also a classic, recreating it. Then of course, I thought a really cool one that was a nice swerve was Kurt Angle and taking on Undertaker was also a pretty halfway decent match in my opinion. But like I said, there's quite a few of them to choose from early days WWF. In the 80s, or maybe it started in the 90s. I can't remember when Survivor Series started, when its first event was, but then there was also, of course, the New Generation era, which never really heard too many matches that were big at Survivor Series then, but I'm sure there's probably some I'm forgetting. Maybe, I can't remember, was Bret Hart versus Bob Backlund, but I think that may have taken place at Survivor Series. I just can't remember off the top of my head, but I think that happened. Either way, I mean, what's your favorite main event of Survivor Series? Could even be a recent one, if you like. Obviously, if you're a recent WWE fan. But anyway, the new concept, I'm not really much of a concept, but just the new thing that I'm going to try out in this video was a while ago, I was asked by a specific viewer, Danny Sandoval, I believe that's how you pronounce it. It was about like a few weeks ago, I believe. He asked me, if I had any opinions on, ROM hacks and I should make one and all this other stuff. Fact is I'm not a modder, I'm not a ROM hacker, I'm not a data diddler or anything like that. I'm very much appreciate what the community gives us and all this stuff. Obviously I'm enjoying playing Neon Green Edition right here by KWG, of course, once again. Even if it's just a minor in comparison, it's not roster overalls or anything like that. It's still very entertaining to play it. Never bad excuse to play through WrestleMania 2000, but that initial comment, I was actually going to make a video of it, Aki Sunday and stuff like that. But, instead, I just figured for these playthroughs, because I actually, in my spare time, I created my own concepts for Dream ROM hacks that I would like to see in the future and stuff like that. I'm just going to share them with you and stuff like that, guys, so figured I'd just kind of go over them and give you guys an explanation. But once again, I'm not a ROM hacker. I'm not a modder. I'm not a data diddler. So these are all just fun fantasy concepts just for the fun of it. and you know, some are more in depth than others and stuff like that. And you'll notice a lot of them are just Ruthless Aggression era. Most of them, I would actually say, are just Ruthless Aggression era ROM hacks and stuff like that. And like I said, just concepts. So if you guys want to, you can even share any concepts you would like to see. You know, someday of ROM hacks. You know, it could be crazy, like, you know, some of mine are gonna be where it's complete game overhauls, or could it be, you know, just as simple as like, hey, I want to see so and so, like the Ultimate Warrior in WCW NWO Revenge or something like that. So just feel free to share your dream ROM hacks down below if you'd like, or you could do it in another video or something like that, because this is probably going to be, you know, an episode or two of me sharing them, because I've actually come up with quite a few that I'd like to just see someday in various different concepts. But with that said, we're gonna start off here with our SmackDown 64. Now, if you have followed the channel at all, you guys might know that I'm a little obsessed with the beta, the E3 demo of WWF No Mercy. And I have quite a few videos on them, and I don't know, I just find the whole thing to be a very, very intriguing demo and stuff like that. So that's why I post it often on my channel, usually on Fridays and stuff like that. I made quite a few videos of the betas. But my initial concept would be just making No Mercy from that game. So like it would be more WrestleMania 2000-ish, Virtual Pro Wrestling 2-ish and stuff like that. But it would have that SmackDown aesthetic that we've seen in the June E3 demo, and it would have, you know, since it'd be based off of Virtual Pro Wrestling 2, it would have, like, you know, a larger roster than No Mercy. The graphics would be less, and the graphics would be kind of based off of like the beta look of all the characters from that E3 demo, as well as, you know, the July and August beta looks of those characters. So, you know, it would be like, you know, some characters, like people like the Triple H look from those betas a lot more than we got in the finals, but most of them may look a little rough in comparison to what we got in No Mercy, but that's alright. I just think it'd be a really cool concept to kind of get that original SmackDown 64 concept going and stuff like that. And, you know, since it would be technically No Mercy, would still have, you know, all the concepts that were included in that demo that were obviously not fleshed out. They were just there as like a display of what would be coming. So obviously Survival and Championship Mode would be the main campaigns for that, obviously. But the roster would be kind of one of the bigger differences too. And also the arena, obviously, it would have the SmackDown 64 arena, so there would be 2 announce tables instead of just one. And I think I would like to include, if possible, backstage fighting, just like how we got in No Mercy and stuff like that. So pretty much No Mercy, but just different look, different aesthetic, more characters. And I would honestly base this around that beta kind of time period, so probably like some point of like Survivor Series 1999 to June of 2000. So the roster wouldn't be a direct one-to-one with No Mercy, so like guys like the Right to Censor would be missing, for example. So no Stevie or Steven Richards, actually I should say. And like guys like Bull Buchanan would still be in his Godfather tag team, and Phil Venus would still, you know, be, well, he was actually not in Right to Censor and No Mercy. I don't even know where I'm coming up with that. I'm getting credulous here, but guys like Godfather would just be the Godfather, and that whole good ordeal there and stuff like that. And a lot of the same match types and stuff, you know, obviously a ladder match, special guest referee, Iron Man match would be a cool addition, but maybe that wouldn't be included just because, you know, it wasn't in the beta. But just a faithful recreation of what the game could have looked like if it had stuck to the same art direction and aesthetic and arena design as you know, the beta and the E3 June demo and stuff like that I've shown off on the channel before. Obviously, you know, this is just a playthrough, so I'm not going to pull up any sort of images or anything like that on screen, but honestly, on screen right now, I'm getting my butt whooped by The Undertaker for the IC title. We're going to have to figure out a way to come back. But I would also add, you know, guys who were canceled from No Mercy as well. So, for example, Gangrel would be on the roster. Steven Richards would just be Stevie Richards, based off of his time as an impersonator in late 1999 before he got injured. Then Funaki would be his own character. The Mean Street Posse would be available in the game as well from the start. And then some unlockables would be guys like Stone Cold, Shawn Michaels, the Dead Man version of The Undertaker, Cactus Jack, Mick Foley, and Dude Love. Dude Love would be included. I'd put the British Bulldog as an unlockable just because why not. Vince, Shane, Stephanie, Pat Patterson, Gerald Briscoe, Mae Young, Fabius Moolah would be two separate characters, obviously. Bob Backlund would be put in there because of his, you know, early run in 2000. Would be cool. Sergeant Slaughter would be cool, simply just because I think he was one of the planned legends in SmackDown 2, so it just wouldn't have made sense, you know, especially since he was kind of around at that time, you know, in late, it was more like 98, 97, which he was one of Vince McMahon's stooges and stuff like that, but obviously I think he was still with the company at the time, so which is kind of, it's always weird to me that he was never included as a, you know, a hidden playable character around these time periods. Andre the Giant would still be in there along with Jerry Lawler, who I would like to actually have like an official moveset for him instead of the cheap, really easy, lame ones that they always give him in the Aki games for some reason. Acting like as if he was never a wrestler to begin with, when he's, you know, one of the biggest wrestlers of all time when you really think about it. Jim Ross, Michael Cole could be unlockables, Earl Hebner, Howard Finkel, Paul Bearer, and, you know, the Hoes, and just listing off all these guys because they would be, you know, separate, their own characters and stuff like that. Hopefully I'm not, you know, losing you guys too much in this stuff, and I'm, you know, hopefully you can follow along with the ideas that I'm trying to craft here, and you get the idea of what I'm talking about when I'm bringing up all this stuff. The arenas that I would include here would be virtually the same. There'd be 10 arenas, so there'd be SmackDown, Raw, Royal Rumble, No Way Out, WrestleMania 2000, Backlash, Judgment Day, King of the Ring, SummerSlam, and Survivor Series. And I just think, you know, it would be cool to include Judgment Day and No Way Out 2000 just because, you know, just for different variety. And obviously, since it's not going to be, it would be called SmackDown 64, which I believe is what it was originally supposed to be titled, and that's why the aesthetic looked the way it did in the June demo. But it would be just kind of to be able to kind of create a more fluid calendar and time of events and stuff like that. And then, yeah, like I said, most of the same matches. I think it'd be cool if there was a last man standing match involved, you know, based off of the mechanics of the MMA boxing match that you see in Virtual Pro Wrestling 2, where, you know, you have to get up before the 10 count. I think that'd just be really cool if they made that into a last man standing match in No Mercy. Obviously, you know, you wouldn't have the point system or anything like that, but, you know, I never really understood why they didn't just make that, you know, why they didn't make it a last man standing match. And it's pretty cool because it seems like in ECW Bound, or it's Born to Be Wired at this point, I keep forgetting the name, changed, but by Retro Randy Price, it looks like we're going to get a last man standing match, so that's going to be really awesome, honestly. I actually seen some footage from a live stream from a friend of the channel, Fun with Cause, and that was a really entertaining match and a really cool looking concept, so I'm glad he showed that off when he did. Then Championship, I would just shorten it to like 5 paths. The WWF Tag Team, Intercontinental, European, and Hardcore. And then, you know, you can unlock almost everybody in Championship mode, you know, 15 of the characters. And, you know, you can unlock, you know, 3 characters per championship. So, you know, guys like Stone Cold could be unlocking the WWF, Andre the Giant, the WWF again, and Mick Foley in the WWF, you know, title paths. Then guys like Cactus Jack in the Hardcore, Pat Patterson, since he's the first IC champion, it'd be cool to unlock him in the Intercontinental path, stuff like that. Not going to go into total details with that. And then there'd be, you know, the same guys, you know, in Survival and stuff like that. So you got your quick guys like Jerry Lawler and Jim Ross at, like, you know, the first 10 entries. And then, you know, by the time you get to the end, you know, you would have like The Undertaker, Stone Cold, Andre the Giant as, you know, the last guys you can unlock, you know, the longer you stay into the gauntlet. And then there would be a few SmackDown Mall exclusives. So like Stephanie McMahon, Paul Bearer, Hose, Howard Finkel. Don't really have any idea of what they would be priced as, but it would be fair. Instead of like the Hose and the final No Mercy release. $500,000, that's ridiculous. And as far as like the music goes, I would change it up just a little bit. So, you know, I would change it to the menu music. You know, main menu music would be like the SmackDown 1 main menu. I just like that song. The options menu would be the Just Bring It menu music. The data would be the SmackDown 1 Create a Wrestler mode. And then the edit mode would be SmackDown 2 Create a Wrestler mode. I just think those are just tracks I would personally like to see. But other than that, that is just about it for my idea of fantasy SmackDown 64, how I would modify and change the ROM hack, and you know, what I would like to see from that title if I had the ability to change that up, and you know, what I'd like to see and stuff. You know, I'm saying the same thing over and over again. But moving on, we'll do one more. We'll see if we have, I think we should have enough time for this one. I would also like to make a WrestleMania 2000 Ultimate Edition. And I know we have the SK Styles Edition, which is pretty awesome. There would just be more things I would like to see change, you know. Because we have No Mercy Plus, which is obviously a very big difference in the game. You know, it's definitely a lot different than the base No Mercy. It's like a completely different game in a lot of respects when you really look at version 3 at this point. With the bigger, you know, the roster has literally been doubled. You know, many new features, new weapons, new mechanics. So it's a much different game, and you know, no disrespect to SK Styles, he's created a lot of great ROM hacks and translations, and he's pretty much credited as, you know, a big help to any and all ROM hack and modders and stuff like that in the community. It's just I personally would like to see a few more improvements made to kind of make WrestleMania 2000, you know, that to give it that WrestleMania 2000 Plus kind of name, you know, something completely different. So obviously WrestleMania 2000 Plus is what SK Styles named his version of WrestleMania 2000, which once again fixes a lot of bugs. You know, did some pretty cool edits to it. It's just kind of a better version of the base game though, so I would rename this one, my personal improvements, the Ultimate Edition. So first off, weapons would stay in the arena, just like how they do in No Mercy. If you drop a weapon, you can slam people on top of it. You can have up to 6 weapons in the arena at one time. Of course, then, you know, you can pick them up and reuse them whenever you want. You can toss them at your foes, just like how they work in No Mercy. And I just think that would be a really awesome concept, obviously, because otherwise, in the other hockey games other than No Mercy, weapons just are kind of an afterthought, and just, you know, AI just never end up using them because of how difficult it is to just land a hit on them, you know. Also, there would be fighting on the stage. So this is something that I think would be really awesome. Because the stage for entrances, you know, it's still there, just like how it is in No Mercy, except you just can't. There's the invisible wall blocking you from the stage. So it just would be really cool if, you know, you could remove that invisible wall and then create like I don't know what you'd call it, like a portal or something like that. Just like a No Mercy. Just like a No Mercy, in which then you can fight on the stage and stuff like that. And I think that would be really cool, just fighting on the stage of all arenas. Then, of course, backstage environments would be pretty awesome. So, you know, I just threw in a few areas. So, pretty much almost all the areas from No Mercy. You know, the hallway, the boiler room, the locker room, the parking lot. And then, you know, I think some other cool areas that would be really nice to see would be like the interview area. And I would think it'd be cool to base it off of like the Raw's War interview area that you would see around that time, you know, with like the cage fence in the background and with like the Raw's War logo in the back and stuff like that. I think it'd be really awesome just to see that, even if it was in every arena and not just the Raw's War one. It'd just be really cool to kind of just have it there, you know what I mean, as an official interview area. Something I don't think we got around this time. Wasn't until I think the PS2 era where they actually got the accurate interview areas that we've seen on TV included in the cutscenes. And then of course, you know, I think an office for like GM visits would be really cool. So I guess at this time they weren't really GMs, it would be like Vince McMahon and stuff like that. So like people, just like a cool office to have fight in where, you know, Vince McMahon would be hanging out in or something like that, or Shane, for you know, cutscenes and stuff, which we'll get more into the cutscenes in a minute. But the final area would be like a lounge area, and not like a sports lounge like we see in No Mercy, but something like along the lines of like something closer to SmackDown 2's lounge area, where you had like the big couches and there was just a TV, and I just think that would be a really cool area to fight in. Very different, unique. And I would also add a records mode that was available in like Virtual Pro Wrestling 2 and was supposed to be in No Mercy, but obviously got canned and, you know, was in No Mercy Plus though. Then stairs at ringside would be a small detail that would be pretty awesome. I would replace I would replace the Sunday Night Heat arena with the SmackDown arena. Probably something very close, you know, using the same textures as we've seen in the E3 demo of No Mercy. Somebody keeps asking me, I can't remember their names now, but somebody like asked me like 3 or 4 times if I would, you know, if I would, you know, make a ROM hack of No Mercy or of WrestleMania 2000 where like I replaced the Sunday Night Heat arena with the SmackDown arena from the E3 demo. And, you know, it's a cool concept. I would do it if I could, but, you know, I obviously, once again, at the start of this video, I don't know how to do that. I'm not a modder, I'm not a ROM hacker or a data diddler. I have to say all 3 just to cover all points. But I would really think it'd be awesome if somebody could do that, but obviously I don't know how to do any of that stuff. So I just really need to emphasize that point, because for some reason there's just some people on this channel, like, it's only like 1 or 2 that just ask me like, hey, can you do this and all that sort of stuff. I just don't really understand where it's coming from. But no, I would, if somebody can make that simple adjustment, I'd highlight it on the channel as soon as I seen it and stuff like that. But, you know, that would just be a really cool thing to include, just because, you know, I know SmackDown wasn't, it started in 1999, but it was like, I think in August when it first came out. So the majority of the year, like, Sunday Night Heat was the secondary show, but obviously just SmackDown would just make this game pop a lot more and would really stand out, and really cool look. Very different look for this game, the arena. I don't know, some people might say it would stand out more, but I would love that. Obviously, if I could add on to it, you know, add an 8th arena, that'd be freaking awesome. But, you know, if one arena had to go, it would be the Sunday Night Heat one, since it's just so close to the identity of SmackDown. I mean, the identity of Raw. It's just a revamped Raw arena. But it would be even cool if you had like a second Heat arena that was based off of the SmackDown Heat arena, because that's what they did for the longest time when SmackDown came out too. But we're harping on this particular point for a little too long. Breakable table weapon would be awesome as well. You know, even if it was something kind of like a No Mercy Plus, where it's similar to kind of like the Warzone, the Acclaim game tables, where it's just, you know, you can't really stand people on them, you just have to do moves next to them. I mean, something's better than nothing. I think it'd be pretty cool. But obviously, I wouldn't want the tables to collapse either if you kind of move too close to them. And then the biggest thing would be stories in season mode, I would like to do. The biggest complaint that most people have about Road to WrestleMania is that there's not really any cutscenes and there's not any overarching story. It's just a really long, year-long playthrough of just match after match after match with no story. You know, and maybe if you're lucky, somebody will interfere in your match, you know, you get a cutscene, or if you start losing tag team matches, your partner will get pissed off and call you out and stuff like that. But not really much story there, so while I wouldn't have any story ideas in particular, I would like it if it was like SmackDown points, just kind of like the SmackDown series, like Here Comes the Pain. So that would determine your story, who you were feuding with, and you know, the tiers of characters and stuff like that. So let's say jobber territory would be 50 to 70 points. You know, you would fight, you know, guys like Droz and Albert, Midian and Viscera, Steve Blackman, the Headbangers, PMS, Too Much, Patterson and Briscoe, Michael Hayes, and the Blue Meanie. Now in the middle of the card, guys, you know, if you were in the 71 to 80 point range, would be D'Lo Brown, you know, Mark Henry, Jerry Lawler, Val Venus, Hardcore Holly, Al Snow, The Brood, the Hardy Boys, Shane McMahon, and the Acolytes. People you would face potentially in the upper card, which would be 81 to 90, would be, you know, some of the top guys like Chris Jericho, X Pac, Billy Gunn, Road Dogg, Ken Shamrock, Cactus Jack, Godfather, Bossman, Test, and Jeff Jarrett. And then, you know, if you're in the 91 to 99 point range, you'd face the main eventers. So Stone Cold, The Rock, Triple H, Mankind, Dude Love, Shawn Michaels, Undertaker, Kane, Big Show, Vince McMahon. And obviously, you know, month-long storylines would happen there. So, you know, if you're feuding with Vince McMahon, he'd pair you up with a bunch of corporation guys until you face them at the pay-per-view or whatever, or week 4 or something. And that'd be, you know, what I would like to see in like a WrestleMania Ultimate Edition type thing, just to kind of make the game that much better. And I don't know, some people might say it's a little too much. That would just be too different from the base game. But that said, they're just my wild ideas and they'll never come to fruition. But that said, share your thoughts down below. But thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed, make sure to like and subscribe. Check out next week's episode. But above all else, please remember to have a nice day.